Hi everyone, welcome again to my channel. My name is Vanessa Vasquez and I am your Lima City tour guide. Today we're going to talk about the worst earthquakes in the history of Peru. We're going to address this very interesting topic and we're going to see different cases of horrible earthquakes in our history. We have a long list of earthquakes, so it will be really a never-ending video if we talk about each one of our historic, atrocious earthquakes. But we're going to give a look to the worst that we had. And well, this is, by the way, my selection of the worst earthquakes in the history of Peru. There's not an official list, but we're going to also give a look to different earthquakes in many parts of Peru. So you are going to judge at the end of this video if my list was accurate. So well, let's now go to this video. And by the way, if you would like to support this project and help me to continue creating videos about Peru's history, well, you have a way to do it. You can become my Patreon. All the information of how to join this program is in the description of this video. So let's begin with the worst earthquakes in the history of Peru. So as I was saying in the beginning of this video, earthquakes have been the natural force that have probably been the most destructive, but at the same time transforming energy. We know that since the pre-Hispanic times, earthquakes were not just considered a transformative force, but also were related with the gods. We have a very important god that produced earthquakes, Pachacamac. So actually there was an oracle in the coast of Peru, in the central coast of Peru, that was considered to be the most important oracle of the coast back in the times of the Incas, the oracle of Pachacamac. And it was so important that the very conquistadors came to this oracle to destroy it. So now we have to understand what causes earthquakes in Peru and in this part of the world. And that's why I am sharing with you this image that has the representation of where is the Ring of Fire of the Pacific. The Ring of Fire of the Pacific is this very, very active tectonic zone in the world that is in constant motion, and we have the blessing or the curse of being located in this zone. All the countries that are very famous for earthquakes are, for example, Japan, Chile, and well, earthquakes are constantly there. But we don't have just one plate now that is moving. We actually have many. So we are located, Peru is located in the South American plate, but we have another plate that is impacting our plate, which is called the Nazca plate. So the Nazca plate, by the way, receives the name of a zone in Peru and also the name of a culture, Nazca. The Nazca plate is impacting against the South American plate, and that is making the Andes to keep growing. Isn't this incredible? In millions of years, probably, the Andes will be the highest mountain range in the world and will have the highest mountains in the world. So you already know that the pre-Hispanic societies knew about the earthquakes and they were prepared to face earthquakes. We have evidences everywhere of also or horrible earthquakes, like terrible earthquakes that probably caused a lot of destruction in the pre-Hispanic times. For example, here you can see a wall with sort of like it has like a cut or a crack in the wall, but basically because the wall is made from stones, the stones that were perfectly aligned and put together, well, they were separated. Like imagine what kind of earthquake you need to do something like that, right? In the pre-Hispanic times, people deal with earthquakes, and we have a knowledge about how to survive earthquakes, how to make architecture that is seismic proven. But sometimes earthquakes are way too tremendous. So we have to begin with the earthquake of Yungay that happened in the year 1970. May 31st, 1970, we had in Peru an earthquake of 7.9 Richter scale. The consequence of this earthquake was 70,000 deaths. About 800,000 people had to be relocated to different parts. Most of them came to Lima, to the city of Lima. So what caused the, let's say, this number of deaths? The earthquake alone? Well, not really. What we saw in Yungay was the collateral damage of an earthquake that produced an avalanche, and that avalanche impacted, of course, on the city of Yungay. So here you can see the picture of the beautiful Huascaran mountain. Huascaran is beautiful and as well also lethal. So here you can see the destruction caused by the avalanche. And this was not the only case when this hill, this glacier also caused damage in that zone. A few years before the earthquake in the year 1962, there was, of course, another earthquake that also impacted the same way to another zone, another city. But you can see that Yungay saved just 4 inches from being touched by that avalanche. But in 1970, unfortunately, the avalanche was even bigger. So Yungay was completely erased. You can see here, for example, how the city used to look like before. We can see, especially on the left-hand side, pictures how the city looked like, and images of the city, and then what happened after the avalanche and how the whole city was completely covered. In some sections there was mud covering the city for up to 10 meters, so it was impossible to evacuate anyone after the earthquake. And here we can see the city center. This is where the main square of Yungay used to be, and something like a very sad also are some few reminders of where the exact location of certain buildings and sites used to be. For example, here we see those palm trees. There were several palm trees on the main square. When the avalanche came, few buildings remained standing, and in this case, for example, the palm trees that you see there are the palm trees of the main square that still are there. These elements help people to identify where their houses used to be, because there were some people who survived the earthquake and the avalanche, and those people went to the highest points of the city to be able also to escape, but they didn't really knew what it was happening. Like what people here, like survivors mentioned, was just like sounds of something very strong sounding like a plane, something like that, like the strong sound a plane does when it's taken off. It was the same experience they had. So the few people who were able to survive were evacuating to a stadium, the stadium of the town. They were able to reach the highest point of the stadium, and also there were other group who were able to escape to a cemetery which was higher than the rest of the city. 30 million tons of dirt, of material from Huascaran mountain were dragged down to the city of Yungay. This material traveled to the city like so fast. The speed was about 400 kilometers per hour. So here we see an image of how the center of Yungay looked like after the earthquake. It's a desolating image, of course. That's why people had to be relocated. There was no chance for them to continue living there, because also the fear of facing something like this again, and they had no reason to stay anymore. But because of the so many people who were buried alive in that zone, that place couldn't be also used again as a sign of respect to the dead and the families. So that is nowadays a cemetery, like a memorial of that terrible event, that we hope never again repeats. And now we're going to talk about the earthquake of 1950 in Cusco. It happened on May 21st, 1950, and it reached a 6.8 Richter scale, causing 1,580 deaths. So we know that the earthquake lasted for 6 seconds, but wow, those 6 seconds were completely destructive. The destruction caused by that earthquake affected the imperial city of Cusco, that beautiful city we all dream to see and even to live in. Is also a place that is witness of earthquakes. But that earthquake in particular, which happened in modern times, destroyed several buildings and especially churches of the historic center of Cusco. And here is how the news informed back then in the 50s about the destruction. And in the main line of this news, it says that 20,000 people sleep on the streets outside their houses, because there were not even houses to sleep in after that earthquake. So here you can see the destruction on one of the beautiful churches of the historic center. When the Spanish conquistadors came to Peru, they were really not like experts in earthquakes. They didn't experience earthquakes of the magnitude we did. Here you can see also the impact in the famous Coricancha, also known as the Temple of the Sun, also known as the Temple of Saint Dominic, after the earthquake. So we can recognize easily the construction's most famous, most photographed angle, and you can see that there are two different sections. There's one section in the bottom, one on top. Like the part that is colonial is all destroyed, the part that is pre-Hispanic is intact. Now when you go to Cusco, you don't even notice that there was an earthquake like this. But it took time to do the restoration. It was done meticulously and carefully, but Cusco didn't look like this in the 50s. And all what you see now is in big part reconstruction. People were not able to return to any homes after the earthquake, and after they left their houses, the people who were able to survive the earthquake, when they returned, they couldn't see like anything recognizable. This is also one of the most famous pictures of that earthquake. You can see the Church of La Merced, one of the sections of the church, one of the side altars of the church, and you can see like the tremendous hole in the roof of the church, and a Mercedarian monk friar that is there on one side, like looking to the destruction, or looking to the altar, and like feeling completely desolated. So here you see also a picture of the main square or the Plaza de Armas of Cusco, and well, there are people there on tents. They took this square, people who had nowhere to return, they had no home anymore. They just put tents in the square. You can see, for example, the fountain of Cusco in the center, and well, you know, this situation prolonged for days. And now we're going to move to Lima. So the earthquake of 1655, November 13, 1655, was a 7.8 Richter scale earthquake. So the amount of destruction that something like this can cause in a city like Lima, like even nowadays, like in these present moments, you know, can be such that, well, I don't want to even imagine this. Okay, so but also this earthquake was the beginning of a faith that we still carry nowadays in Peru. That is a faith that is in a way also mixed, and it has elements from the pre-Hispanic times, and it has also elements of the Catholic faith imposed by the Spanish initially, and then also accepted and embraced by the Peruvians from their heart. And it also has African like touches and elements. So we are talking about the faith to the Lord of the miracles. And by the way, we are in October. So October is the month of the Lord of the miracles. Who is the Lord of the miracles? Is Jesus Christ. By the way, I'm using today the colors, purple color, lilac color, are associated with the call to the Lord of the miracles, the worshiping of Señor de los Milagros here in Peru. Also known as Cristo de Pachacamilla, the Lord of the Miracles, is a faith, is a tradition that dates back to the mid-17th century. The origin of the image that we worship is not so clear, but we know that it was a black man who painted the image of the Lord of the Miracles on a wall of adobe in a zone that was a very, very humble of Lima, a section that was sort of like the part where the slaves live, the African community lives. So it was out of the city center section back then. Now it's in the very center of the city, and these men belonged to a community of slaves who were probably already introduced into the Catholic faith, and they were even Catholic themselves. So they worshiped God, they worshiped Jesus. They probably didn't understand every detail of the faith, but they were Catholic. And this man painted on a wall of adobe the image that, well, came to his inspiration of how Jesus looked like in the Calvary. So that representation of a Jesus crucified, suffering, is the one that we still worship, and that we keep as a holy relic. This painting in a church that is named Church of Nazarenas, and that we visit especially in October, as I said before. So this man painted the Christ on a wall of adobe. He, of course, was a very, very good painter. When you go and see the painting, like, it looks very beautiful. It's very well made. So we know that that earthquake was the reason of the beginning of the worshiping of that Jesus, because the painting was made before, of course, the earthquake. So when the earthquake happened, like, the whole city collapsed, and miraculously the wall where the image of Jesus was painted remained in one piece, like it was like untouched by the earthquake. So that's the beginning of the cult of the Lord of the Miracles, the earthquake of 1655, and a painting that was in a wall that resisted the movement of the earthquake. So now we go to another earthquake. We will continue in Lima, of course, and we are going now to do a jump in the history from the year 1655 to the year 1746. So this earthquake was a 9 Richter scale earthquake. So imagine something so massive, so destructive. Some historians mention that this earthquake lasted about 3 minutes. So imagine that, a constant movement that long. We know that about 15,000 to 20,000 people were killed by this earthquake, by the combination of the earthquake and the tsunami later. Lima had walls, but not just Lima, also the port of Callao. The port of Callao, the port of Lima back then had walls for protection. We had pirates, we had attacks of indigenous in our early history, colonial early history, rebel Incas who tried to siege Lima and who tried to expel this from this territory, the Spanish. The walls were in a way, a form of protection from, let's say, like any attacks to the city, but also they could be very dangerous in cases of earthquakes. So this is a painting from the year 1680. You can see the main square of Lima very animated, and that is because the main square of Lima used to be a market. You can see also the cathedral. That's the church you see over there, and the cathedral has bell towers that are very different to the ones you're going to see nowadays. So we know that from the 3,000 houses that we had in Lima in the year 1746, only 25 houses remain standing. The earthquake started around 10 p.m. at night, so it was very late. So, well, that's the point when things get very bad, because everybody was in their houses. People were sleeping and they would catch inside their houses. And on top of all of the problem, like that of being trapped in an earthquake at nighttime, like they couldn't see anything in the city. About 30 minutes after the earthquake, there was a tsunami. And here we can see where Callao was located and is still located nowadays, of course, without the walls of the colonial city. The walls were completely destroyed by the tsunami. But, well, the distance between Callao and Lima is more or less 15 kilometers. So back then also, like going from one side to the other, it could take a whole day because it was late at night. People didn't see the sort of like the water like going away from the shore. So the water was retracting, like going away, and people were not really looking at the ocean at that moment. They were like more preferring to go to the few standing churches inside Callao's city. So not everybody evacuated the city properly. So, well, that caused also that when the tsunami wave that was much bigger than the walls of Callao, so some say that the wave of the tsunami was as high as 10 meters, that wave completely got into the city, trapping everybody inside the walls of Callao, the walled city of Callao. So just few people were able to survive. So the ones who were able to escape, also to go away to higher lands outside the city. Also, it was informed that people who were able to climb up the back walls of the city, right, the ones that were more distant from the wave, those were the ones who were able to survive. All the community of indigenous fishermen who were outside the walls, the Piti Piti community, was all killed also by the tsunami. And this is a horrible picture of how probably the tsunami wave penetrated, how much it penetrated into the city. Back in that time, Lima was very little. There were just like few people living in the port of Callao and few people living in the center of the city, and there was a lot of plantation fields around. So if we have something like that nowadays, this is what could happen. I don't live very far away from here, by the way. I don't live far away from this section. So, we will be destroyed. We will be swept away by the water. And we come to the very last earthquake in our list, and that is the earthquake of Pisco. Pisco is located in the south of Peru, is in the south coast, not too far away from Lima, but is out of the department of Lima. In the year 2007, a terrible earthquake happened on Pisco, an earthquake of 7.9 Richter scale, so very close to a Richter scale. Imagine the destruction that something like that can cause. Unfortunately, in the zone where this earthquake happened, the epicenter of the earthquake happened, all the houses collapsed and lots of people died because of houses collapsing over them. Lima also felt the earthquake, and because it happened in 2007, I remember it. I was very young when that earthquake happened, and I remember being on a building in San Isidro district on the 5th floor in San Isidro, the financial district of Lima. It was the day before my eye laser surgery, a corrective surgery. So thanks God it didn't happen on the day of my surgery. So I was there to check, to do some, exams before the laser surgery. And I remember the beginning of the earthquake, and I remember the buildings around me moving, like palm trees, like here, like this, doing this same movement. It was incredible. I still have that image in my mind. I was in a 5th floor, so I couldn't go down, of course, from that floor. I couldn't use elevator, I couldn't use the staircase, so we just stay away from the big windows from where I was seeing really what was happening outside. There was a big blackout in the city immediately after the earthquake, and I remember it happened around 6:30 p.m. So it was getting dark, and it was the rush hour time in Lima. So it was crazy, the rush hour, the people in the cars, because I didn't live there in San Isidro. So I remember we couldn't take any cars. We were just walking everywhere because everything was blocked. So I returned home at around 9 p.m. From that long walk from that place to my house. It was terrible. And the earthquake in Lima was 7 Richter scale, more or less 7.1 Richter scale. In Pisco, we have lots of cases of destruction. For example, one of those interesting stories is the main church of Pisco. And this is an image of the church and how it collapsed inside. So you can see that the most resistant sections of the church were, in this case, surprisingly, the bell towers, which are, it's like the image is in the back of the church. So the bell towers are looking to the main square. You can see that all the entrance hall, the entrance, the corridor, the central corridor, was completely covered by the rooftop, which was mainly made on mud bricks, and also the church top was made of wood, bamboo. But the saddest part of this is that, it was 6:30 p.m. 6-7 are the times when you will always find a mass in most churches. So the church was full of people, and these good people of Pisco were all buried alive inside the church, the roofs collapse over them. This is a very, very terrible picture. You can see also the this bamboo that was part of the rooftop, the walls also collapsing, and people trying to rescue their dead. And well, the central part that you see there, that's sort of like a little arch you see over there, was really the central cupola or central dome where the roof was supported in. So that was the only part that resisted. But also the roads were completely destroyed. This is how much an earthquake can destroy roads. For example, the connectivity. We did have in Lima damage, but not at this level, of course. Entire buildings collapsed. Entire buildings like fell down. And this is also in part because many of these houses were not made with the anti-seismic technology. People who lost everything in 1 minute. Houses, like cars and relatives. Like there are houses in Pisco that still are damaged, that still are like broken since 2007. And this also brings me to a story of one of the deaths, one of the casualties caused by the earthquake of 2007. Is a famous story of a child named Chicho. So Chicho is known as the little saint of Pisco. Of course, he's an sort of like unrecognized saint, is not officialized the worshiping and the sanctity of Chicho, but people don't care, honestly. So Chicho was a 9-year-old child who in 2007, when the earthquake happened, was of course very healthy and very normal, and he was a really good child. He's remembered as a very good boy by his parents. So well, the story says that when the earthquake happened, sadly, like he wanted to go to play video games. Like in Peru back then, especially, we had a lot of these like internet cafes where children used to go to play video games. So well, Chicho's mom, because he was a good boy and he behaved very good during the whole day, she gave him a little, something money to go to the internet cafe to have fun, right? So well, he left the house, and that was the last time she saw him. Because just few minutes after he left the house, he was just going to the internet cafe that was 1 block away, and when he was like getting inside the cafe, the earthquake started. So he decided to return home, and when he was returning home, he went across the internet cafe where there was a very, very old very thick mud brick wall, which because of the movement of the earthquake collapsed over him and buried him alive. So Chicho died that day, but the myth, the legend of Chicho started, and the miracles of Chicho began. So he's so famous that there is a little chapel that was created by the family and the people who are devoted to Chicho, that is located where he died. In the same place where he died is that chapel nowadays, that is covered with lots of pictures inside of people who thank Chicho for miracles, like a lot of gifts and little toys and clothes that people bring to a little like effigy or image of Chicho that was also made by a devoted woman to the saint of the people. So she brought a recreation of Chichos in full like human real size, and that the image is dressed up. So here you can see a list of the worst earthquakes in our history besides the ones I have mentioned during today's video. So look how many earthquakes, like in different parts of the country. We would never end this video. Nobody really mentions anything about earthquakes. Like I think we don't like to talk about it because it's sad, but it's necessary because we need to be prepared for earthquakes. If you want to see more, please don't forget to activate that bell, subscribe to my channel, give me a like, and comment what you would like to see me talking about in the next videos. Take care, have a lovely rest of the day, and see you very soon. Best to you all. Ciao, ciao. Bye, bye. See you.